In this video, we will learn how to fetch data React.js using Vite. So for that, first of all, we'll go to Vite official documentation, and after that, just go to the getting started section on the Vite. Then you have a lot of this template you can use. So I'm gonna just using ban, and I'm just opening my terminal. Going to desktop directory in my terminal, and you can use npm yarn or pnpm also. So I will use just a template. You can see here React.js or anything else you can use from here. You can use a lot of template from here. Just check it out, and everything is just simple. Just React and JS, and okay, we'll move to our folder called data fetching, GT data fetching, and we'll open this folder on our VS Code, and you can open your folder manually also, or you can open it in any code editor. After that, I'm just opening my terminal, and I need to just run install. Okay, it will just install necessary packages for us, and we don't have installed Tailwind, but in our project we will use Tailwind. So Tailwind is not for our focus. Our focus is fetching data. So we can initialize Tailwind initially like that. So ban install T. Okay, we'll use ban. Let's try here. Sphinx ban install the Tailwind, and after that we need banx. Sorry. Okay, here also banx Tailwind init p, and after that we need just this functionality. Let's copy and paste. Our main content is index.html, and we have we will use our Tailwind for this JS6 or TS6. I know you will understand, and we will send in our index.ts file. Okay, here copy and index.css. Just remove everything, paste it out here, and if I run iter run div, okay, close it. Oh, this is our simple Vite app. Okay, Vite with React TypeScript. Don't need this template again. So for now, we'll just remove everything from our, and we'll see how to fetch data with Fetch API and Axios also. So for that, we'll use const data is equal to set data to set our temporary data on this use state, and we can just fetch, and this under the fetch function, this is it is the first parameter or argument. It just accept an input, that URL where you will fetch data from. So in our case, we're using JSON placeholder, and if you go to on the browser and search dummy API, search, okay, you will find a lot of API, and you can think purpose you can use them, like dummy JSON give you just expanded solution to work with API, and So we are now using this dummy data. This is our this API, and it can be just your server URL or anything else. Just understand the core concept, able to do anything. Like we are just fetching data with fetch method, and we are just whenever our data is available, then we are converting our data, because fetch by default it does not convert our data as JSON. That's why we are converting our data. And the fetch is return a promise, and we are just resolving promise by then, and then you can just catch also errors. So now if you would like to just post, and we can also just map our post like that, we can display our post something like that. And if we go to our Vite app, okay, maybe we have a problem in here. Use state is not defined. Oh, sorry guys, need to import use state from React, and after that maybe it should work. Okay, it is working. It is working. Wow. But you can see that initially our data is not available. But how if we show a loading state whenever our data is not available? So we can handle loading state also. And with that, so without using like then catch to resolve promise, we can also use like async await to resolving promises, and handle it more better ways. For that, just removing everything, and const fetch data, or just use async function fetch data is equals to, like we're just passing our URL on the fetch API, and you can pass also like options here, and just we are getting the response here, and this response we are converting it is JSON, because it is not by default JSON. It just return a promise, and we're just resolving this promise as it JSON data, and this is our just exact data. You can just console.log it, clc log data, and make sure that you have just initialize function, but you not just declare your function. So make sure that you have declared your function. But you have a question why you are using useEffect for handling side effects like API calls or subscription, like when you will work with like socket.io or anything else, or just handling side effects working with DOM or window, then you must use useEffect. That otherwise can be just leak your memory, and you will face a lot of problems and infinite loading. And so it is just returning data that has just 100 of data. But if we see, if we go to the documentation, and here we can get just this normal single post, like post/1. So this is one, that means the unique identifier of every post. But this is not our goal, and we can just test it out. And if we just give here just one, it will not return uh, this array. It will return this is normal a object of data, this is single data, or just single ID based on this ID. So we can handle this loading state and error, because if we see here our initially our data is not available, and we have some gap between the loading. So this is our just simple data, but whenever we will work with just real world, then we have a lot of data and lot of things. We need handling errors and handling a loading state. So we can easily do this by const is loading to tracking this loading state in a state, and also we'll just const error. Okay, so this is for just setting dummy data, setting loading state, and just handling errors or setting the error state, error data. So initially, whenever we will start phase, set loading, that loading will be just true, and after the completed fetching and setting data, loading will be false. Okay, initially our loading is true. Initially our loading is true, so loading is true, and after completed database, then the loading is just false. And if we just we can check it here, is if response dot not okay, it is the built-in property. Oh, sorry, that error is equal to, we can just pass our fail to fetch data or anything else. It's returning false also here. So if we have an error like response dot not okay, this is the built-in property of response object, then we're just setting errors, and our loading initially is true, and we are just loading false. So here we're just setting it just empty. Okay, now it is working, and we'll use this loading instead here. If loading, then we're just returning loading. If error, we can just return error like that. And initially we have this to declare the three used state, use state for just setting dummy, setting this temporary data in the state whenever data fetched from the API, then we are just setting this data for using it anywhere in our app, and we are handling loading state. So initially our loading by default the value is true, you can make it false, and you can just set it, just pass loading state whenever data phase will be start, it will be just true. And if we have, if the response dot not okay, that means we have an error to fetching data. That's why in this case we are setting errors and loading false. And if we have data, the setting data and loading also be false, and everything is completed, loading state will be gone, and our data will be displayed on the on our browser. So we can add styles in here like class name, and this display flex all and gap 4. Okay, now it is okay. Oh, it is now, it is okay. And if we see, okay, initially we have loading state, and suppose we have given a wrong URL like this, so this is not the correct URL. Loading in promise. Okay, hero name is not resolved. So we have a problem here. I don't know why it is not working. So I will see response. Log it, remove it. Okay, we need to send the URL to the wrong URL. Okay, yes. Okay, because our URL is not correct. Okay, we can take it just to try as block to handle any errors, then cast by try-catch. So for that, we'll do this in this try and catch. So if we have any error, then we're just setting our error on the error state, loading false. And after setting data, after successfully getting data, we are just setting this data, and also loading will be false, and by default loading is true. So we'll just change our URL as a false or wrong URL, paste to failed. by default initially it is loading, but error name not resolved because this URL is not exist. That's why it is giving errors. Now everything okay. Refresh. Initially loading, and we are getting data. If we have errors, we are now able to just handle errors. This is the manual way to fetching data. You can easily fetch data on any React application. Or in this client side, you can fetch data something like that. But in this case, we need to suppose the same functionality we need in multiple components. Like we need the same functionality in multiple fields in our app. So we can make just reusable hooks to make this. So for that, we can just copy it from here. Let's copy everything, and we'll create a in our any directory. We can create a new object called hooks/use paste data, or you can give it just any name, tsx and refs ce use paste data, and let's use from here. And I need to add necessary use effect, use state in here, and at the last or at the end we'll just return the data, just data loading an error, and we will accept a parameter called url string. Remove the react here, we don't need this react, and we'll just pass the url in here. Okay, now or this hooks or this function is just dynamically accept any type of url, handling this data type, or sorry, handling data, or here we need to just pass like url. So this use effect will be called whenever the url is sent. So this is our just simple same functionality we will use in multiple places. Just call this hook in our app. Just call it in here, pass, use some placeholder, and const data error and loading, like that. We're not getting this space data, and make sure that you have this export default, or you can just export like const your function or hooks. Just space data not getting suggestion here. We don't know why. Okay, it is tsx. Okay, so maybe I need to import it manually, and don't need use effect. Control and shift, control and space, it is not working, so I need to import manually. Use fetch data from hooks / use fetch data, cannot find the module. Oh, this is dot hooks, use fetch data, and it is just returning data, loading an error. And pass also just like type what data you will be just fetched from, and you can just check it out what type of data you are getting. Like in our case, user ID, title, and body. You can just define types in here. For that, we need this type in globally types dot. Okay, we don't need this type globally. We can just define our types in here interface. Just post with ID, title, body, and what we will accept from our API, like user ID, title, and body. Also until we just user ID. Okay, now we can pass type dynamically in here and make sure that for using types in here, okay, T and T, we are using just generic types and it will just return is data as a T, loading also boolean, and error is string. So we can just use data type for now. If we go to remove it, what data type is now? It is the post of data. We know what type of data we are just accepting from our API. So if we just data and post.id, so we have everything in this type step. Just leave this post dot. Wow, we're getting this type shape of data, type shape of our data from our API. Just pass this generic type or dynamic type, and suppose this same functionality you are facing data from multiple API. Pass just your uh, types of your this different function, different functionality, different API. You can pass different API here. You are able to just handling loading instead and lot of things. Okay, here we have a problem. So maybe or error.message, or we can just error facing data and const error is equal to error as error and just pass this error. Okay, now problem is solved. Problem is solved. We're handling error. We're accepting this generic type and this T. That means we are accepting generic types from here, and we know what type of data we will return. Like data, this is the generic or dynamic type, and this loading and error will return from here. And this is just a simple functionality, just tracking temporary state and facing data with the face API. It is built-in API. You don't need to install it. It is JavaScript, just built-in API to handle data fetching or mutation. And also just we are converting it to just response JSON. We are setting our data, loading false after successfully getting data or fetching data, or setting data on the set data state. And if we have error, and we are just setting error and set loading, it's just false. And at the last of in use event, we have just called our fetch data function. Also, you can just create it anywhere. You can just create this function in anywhere in your app, and you can just import it. You can just call it like that, and make sure that you have just handle like data loading and error state. And you don't need to make it just async function. You can handle fetch data. Suppose this is non-async function, and if you call directly in here and from another function, you can just use then and cache to just handle data, and it will just return a promise. With then and cache, you will get data like that. So this is the easiest way, and on the next video I will discuss about how to fetch data with SWR and how to solve your problem in the most easiest and expanded way. And if we just go to output, we just remove everything. Loading, loading. Oh, great. Just to change URL, we have a problem. Fail to face. By default, initially it is loading. Error. Wow. But it is just rewrite everything, and we will never show our main page. But if we just like, you need to just see loading state after the post and not rewrite your uh, whole return or whole this section. So you can just conditionally render it here, like post is equal to, we can get just, okay, we can show the data.length, and if we have this loading, and then loading without setting it, because it will just rewrite everything, and you will never able to see the post if we not available the post. So you can render it just conditionally. If loading, then display loading or anything else, you can just render it. And if we have this error loading, suppose if we don't have loading and data.length is 0, you can just do it. You can do just anything else in here. This is just simple logic. It is not mandatory. The mandatory is just understand. This is our simple function facing data, accept dynamic URL, and accept dynamic types from anywhere to make it reusable. And this is just a simple state to track this temporary data after facing, or just handling errors and loading state whenever we are facing. So another way we can use like Axios. We can do it with Axios, but we'll discuss about Axios in next video. So video will make this functionality easier with Axios and how to fetch data with Axios.